Hello and welcome to Merryweather Knitting. I'm Gabriella and I thought I'd sit with you today and chat a little bit about my knitting dreams and plans for 2024. I can't believe we're already more than halfway through January and I just feel like my dreams and resolutions and thoughts for my knitting projects in the new year have taken this long to kind of fully form and to kind of be articulated by myself in my own mind and heart. And so I really wanted to share them with you to kind of get them down on paper and kind of verbalize them and put them out there before the year really starts in February. I mean, it's already begun. But January always feels like a very full month for me because I have a birthday. In the second week of January, I just celebrated my birthday last week, which is a lot of fun. But it always just feels like there's this, like, the first couple of weeks of January just kind of like settling into the new year. It doesn't really start yet for me until about this time. So I just thought I'd sit with you and chat with you about my dreams and hopes for this year as when it comes to my knitting and my making. And I have a little project I'm going to knit on, so grab a project too. Let's knit together. I have a delicious cup of rooibos tea. It's kind of like a rooibos floral blend tea with some rose and lavender and lots of different delicious floral petals, and it's so delicious. I'm just a huge fan of drinking floral teas. I don't know what it is. I think they're so refreshing and light and wonderful. So yeah, I'll tell you what I'm working on. I'm working on my Byron by Natasha Hornby, which is a gorgeous pullover pattern, and one of the patterns that I really wanted to and want to complete this year. And this is a pattern kind of like a masculine design, more of like a men's knit pattern, and I'm knitting this for my husband Nick, and it's definitely time that he gets a new hand knit sweater from me, so I'm really excited to have it on the needles. It's kind of fiddly because I'm using 4 different balls of yarn at once, and that's what the pattern calls for. And so I kind of have to be careful that they don't get tangled up because they're all either lace weight or fingering weight yarn, and it's just kind of like crazy. It's knit out of Holst Garn Super Soft and Titicaca, the alpaca lace weight version. So it's like held together, 2 different colors, but yeah. I'm loving the project, and that's what I'm going to be knitting on as I chat with you. This year, I just feel so excited about my knits and my making. I feel inspired in a way I haven't felt in a long time, and I think it's because there's just been a lot of kind of creative, creative energy brewing in me the last few months. I have decided consciously to go into this year without any pressure when it comes to my knits. I definitely want to be working on projects that are just fun and joyful, and really where I can express kind of my creativity, where I can grow. I feel like right now, as we speak in this exact moment, I feel like full of like desire to challenge myself and to learn new techniques and to stretch my technical skill when it comes to the craft of knitting and when it comes to textiles in general. I have, beyond knitting, I have a lot of kind of goals and dreams when it comes to my textile kind of practice, when it comes to natural dyeing, which I've loved to do this last year. And it's kind of a new discovery for me in 2023, and I want to definitely explore that more in 2024. I want to sew a lot more. I want to kind of hone my craft when it comes to sewing and seamstressing. I think I just really, really want to explore just the textiles in general in lots of different ways. And so yeah, but I have to say, I've learned now over the last few years that I am definitely like a creature of like seasons. Like I'm a seasonal being, and I think many of us are. I think specifically, a lot of women are, but I think people in general are actually pretty cyclical, kind of seasonally driven creatures. And some of us maybe more than others, or some of us kind of flow with that a little bit more than others. But I've tried in the past to kind of power through seasons of rest or seasons of stillness or quiet, or the winters of the year for me, which don't happen to always be winter, but kind of, metaphorically speaking. I've tried to power through those times and, bootstrapped through, kind of just trying to keep making or keep doing things and kind of grinding and hustling. And that's just not what I want to do anymore. I've, discovered over the last few years that that just doesn't work for me. I do think diligence is important and consistency is important, and being faithful to one's word is very important to me, but not like this kind of grind, crazy, working through craziness, if that makes sense. I'm thinking specifically about, I had a couple of years ago different goals when it came to finishing certain projects, and it just became so exhausting for me to try to force myself to do something that I just wasn't feeling and that wasn't, it wasn't the right season for. And, those seeds that I would try to plant and I would try to nourish, metaphorically, just wouldn't grow. And they were just very weak. And why do something like that in this kind of context of one's creative practice, one's, hobby, one's craft? I think that that's not necessary for me in my state of life. So going into the next year, that's an intention and something I have consciously in my mind, to know that right now I'm in this time of a lot of inspiration, a lot of desire for challenge, and I want to make the most of that. I want to just enjoy that and revel in that and go, deep into those kind of caves of discovery and learn and grow and gather all the new skills I can in this time, not in a greedy way, but just in a joyful, fun way, and learn all that I can. And then when the time comes, which I know it will at some point in the year, I may encounter then like kind of a slowing down season where I kind of just crave more and more very simple projects, or kind of I crave the craft in a way that's just really pure comfort for me and really mindless and just kind of just movement practice, kind of like, I feel it often knitting for me. Now I'm not even knitting as I talk to you. That's always the problem when I try to do knit and chats. I feel like I get too focused on the conversation, but there's just this movement was actually what got me into knitting, what made me really fall in love with knitting itself, because just this movement, this kind of meditative movement of my hands became such a calming practice. And it was a long, long time ago that I learned to knit. I was like a teenager, and I was in a pretty anxious state of my life and a little uncertain. I finished high school early. I was homeschooled. I was just not sure what to do, and I had all this kind of a certain kind of underlying tension, which I think a lot of teenagers have a certain bit of angst. So I think I had a bit of an angsty phase. And as a teenager, discovering knitting was for me just a wonderful way to kind of calm myself and calm my central nervous system and just, have a certain peacefulness, just this practice and this movement. And so sometimes I just need this movement, a slow movement. Right now it's like knits and pearls, but just maybe stockinette in the round, and then the beautiful reward of watching a piece of fabric grow slowly. It feels so beautiful to see the passage of time in an object. When you knit stockinette especially, I feel like you just see the passage of time as the piece grows. And so I know that there are going to be times in this year where that is my that's what I crave. Or maybe I don't even crave knitting at all and I want to just, do natural dyeing and eco printing or something like that. And I want to allow space for that. So it's a big introduction to say, to kind of share where I'm at this moment, my big vision for the next, 12 months and how they're going to look. I don't know if I'm going to share too much details about this, but in the next couple of months, I'm hoping with a very good knitting friend of mine to start a little year-long knit-along, a very slow, wonderful year-long knit-along, and I'll share more about that in the future. But that's one thing I'm very excited about this year as well when it comes to knitting. But kind of more concretely and more specifically, I have a couple of projects and a couple of specific goals and dreams I have for 2024. So the very first kind of big thing I did in preparation for the new year and thinking about my knitting goals was I looked at all of the yarn I have and I wrote down everything I have, and I kind of brainstormed and kind of dreamt about what I would want to make with each and every skein and each and every scrap that I own. I gathered everything I had, I wrote down ideas for each and every skein, and I have enough for sure, especially with my pace, to knit projects for the next year, for sure, if not the next 2 years. I don't have a huge stash or a huge amount of yarn in my possession, but I definitely have enough to enjoy in the next 12 months. And so one big goal and hope and dream I have for this year is that I work through what I have and kind of allow myself to be inspired by what I have, to make do with what I have. And, if I don't know what to knit, I've already thought of patterns, so it makes it easy for myself. And if I see a pattern I like, I'm always allowed to look at what I have and try to find something that would make it work. I think that that's also so much fun and such like nourishment for creativity when you kind of have to look at what you have and make it work. And for me, often that's resulted in me having the most beautiful things. The things I love the most is when I kind of have to be creative about what I use, and it's not exactly by the book or something. I feel like, of course, it's such a luxury and such a dream to buy yarn and buy materials new for a specific project, but they're so much fun, and it's just also really cool to then kind of try to be creative and see what you have and work with that. So that is for me a goal, to try to not purchase yarn this year or be extremely intentional about it. There is a yarn festival that comes locally to me in the summertime. That's a place where even now I would maybe make an exception and try and maybe purchase yarn there, because I think that the experience of that is really special. It's kind of a one-time a year thing, and people come from far and wide, and it's just a special place. So that would maybe be an exception, and there may be exceptions in the future, but that's the overarching kind of goal for the year. And then when it comes to projects, I don't need or want to finish everything on that list, or even a certain number of them. I don't have a number of things I want to knit this year. I don't have a number of socks or a number of mittens or a number of sweaters. Actually, I do have a number of sweaters. But I don't have a specific, I need to knit this amount of things or these specific things. What I do have is the hope and the goal to knit 4 garments, one for each member of our little family. So a sweater for my husband, a sweater for myself, a sweater for our 2 daughters. So that's 4 different little garments. I love making pieces for my children and my husband. It's just so rewarding and so special. And I love seeing my little girls wear my knitwear. And so I definitely want to do that this year. And I want to knit each one of them a little sweater. And I want to knit Nick a sweater, which is what I'm doing right now. I've already started, and I'm very excited about that. And he definitely deserves this. He has been very patient, and he just is so knit-worthy. He'll wear the pieces I knit him constantly. So I'm excited to do that. And then I really always for myself love to knit pieces for myself. I would 1,000 times more prefer to knit something for myself and have a handmade piece than to buy or purchase a sweater. And so I very much enjoy knitting and knitting for myself. And I feel like it's kind of like my version of kind of like self-care or self-nourishment is really knitting for myself. I think there's so much love put into the hand making of something, and so much care, and to knit a piece for yourself is just, it's really wonderful. I feel just wrapped up in that time, and that's, it's for myself, but it just means something to me. It means a lot to me to make my own pieces. And I don't really know I would say, you could say I'm a selfish knitter, but I don't really like to say it that way. I think actually selfish knitter, I feel like it's such a negative thing to say, is selfish. I don't know. I also need sweaters. I also need things to keep me warm, and I appreciate making them. So it is my kind of expression of self-care or self-love, you could say, is to knit things for myself. And I also really love, I feel like fashion, not fashion as, not trend cycles, nothing like that, but I love getting dressed up and feeling, good, and feeling, I kind of, when it comes to clothing for myself, I'm very much like a fantasy driven person. So like when I put on clothing or when I choose clothing, there's often like a huge story attached to it. Like, like this, for example, this I hand dyed, or I naturally dyed this, and I actually filmed it. There's a vlog. I made this myself, this overalls, this linen set of overalls, and I naturally dyed them with, pomegranate skins and iron and when I wear this, I just feel like it just feels so earthy. I love wearing it. I love like layering it. There's a story. It's almost like intangible. I can't even articulate it necessarily, but I just love what outfits and clothing and objects of clothing, I kind of just create narratives around them, if that makes sense. And I feel like it's really special to knit my own things because I get such a part in that creation of that narrative, and like I get to choose what I want, and yeah, I just love that process. So I definitely want to knit for garments. And like I said, other than that, there aren't a specific number of things I want to knit or make. It's really open-ended, but there is another kind of element to the year that I want to bring in more intentionally. And so that next thing that I really want to integrate in the next year is completing designs that I have, existing designs that I have sketched out, and or I'm already almost finished with knitting. There's even one design that I've knitted to completion. I need to knit another sample of, and I just need to write up the pattern. The pattern's already finished. But I haven't done it, and that I just want to truly complete. I think that design is really special and beautiful, and I need to knit another sample. I love the pattern. I want to make another one and share it. I also, I feel like I would say I'm not a perfectionist actually at all in general in my life. I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to myself or when it comes to my home. Like I'm not like super tidy. I'm not like someone who's, really meticulous about things. I'm, when I cook, I like to kind of be, enjoy just experimenting and having fun. I'm not perfectionist when it comes to cooking. There's almost nothing that I would say I'm a perfectionist in. And my husband would laugh if he heard me say like that I would be a perfectionist about something. But, even my knitwear, if you've been following my podcast, I often make mistakes. Rarely do I rip back or even correct it. I just live with it. I think some of us have this certain kind of an eye where we kind of gloss over certain things and then other things kind of appear. I don't know, like more big picture people. I'm definitely more of a big picture person rather than a detail-oriented person. But I recognize my need for detail-oriented people because sometimes it's at my detriment. But the one area where I would say I'm a bit of a perfectionist and where it's not very healthy and good too is when it comes to certain elements of designing. Not pattern writing. There I definitely need help from my tech editor always because I am just not detail oriented and I'll miss a number or miss a punctuation or just I need help. I need an extra set of eyes. But when it comes to design itself, construction and the aesthetics of a piece, the overall aesthetics and the construction and the way it looks, I have a kind of resistance if it's not exactly as I envision or if it's not quite right. I just cannot move through and complete something. And sometimes I think, I'm working on a certain shawl and I think I need to release that and just allow the pattern to be what it is because I think it's beautiful actually. But there's just little bits where I'm like, oh, it's not quite perfect. And I've gone back and I've ripped back and it's been about most definitely over a year that I've been working on this design and knitting the design, not even just brainstorming it or calculating. I've knit up and ripped back, knit up, rip back, knit up, rip back so many times that I think I need to just go through with it and allow it to be this beautiful piece that I think it will be and not correct. So there are more designs I have and I sometimes stop myself because I'm like, oh, is it going to be perfect? I have some yarn that I could use, but is that yarn going to be perfect? And I think that's in this aesthetic realm of knitwear design. That's where I definitely want to release that perfectionism and just kind of allow the design to unfold and to be what it is, and to participate in the process of design with the design, if that makes sense, as a kind of a different entity that just blossoms and blooms, and then to really complete them and to share them with the world because I love designing and I love it's just so rewarding and so meaningful to kind of feel like I transmute this piece of knitwear that's wearable, this beautiful piece of artistry. I do think that's where artistry comes in because my creative process when it comes to designing feels like a creative process, an artistic process, kind of bringing that through and then other people knitting and participating in that and getting to wear what they made from my own design. It's just so special to me and so deeply rewarding. And so I want to venture farther into that realm and try to really truly be diligent and complete those pieces that I've started, all of them. And the thing is the moment I complete one, there are like more ideas I have, and I just feel like the ideas come in faster than I could ever create them. And a lot of it I'm limited by my, it takes me quite a bit to technically develop what I have in mind, what I envision, because mostly, up until this point, I have created my own lace and cable motifs. I mostly have done that myself, not like taken anything from any other resource, and that takes a lot of work for me too. Not saying I won't do that in the future. I think that is, of course, a part of many designers' process, and I think it's a wonderful way to bring your design to life too. But I just want to complete what I've started. That's what I'm saying with when it comes to designing, and I want to just kind of explore designing more and grow as a designer, because it's just been something that I've found so rewarding. And also it's such, just practically, what a privilege and a gift to be able to kind of receive something back for the knitting time. And as you release something, the work you put into it, the time you put into it, to be able to receive something back when I get to sell designs, it's just also really rewarding. And I think it feels, just a wonderful feeling to have that exchange. So that's another kind of goal I have. And those are my main knitting dreams and hopes for the new year. They're not very many. I don't have really, I thought about making a make 9, because I do think that I have 9 patterns that I hope to make this year. But I have yet to ever really accomplish it and really do all 9 patterns. And it can also be a bit of a dream board to make a make 9, list or something. But this year I decided not to do it, even though I think it's so fun, and I love watching other people make 9s, for example, or kind of have knitting resolutions, and I love watching people complete them through the year. I think that's so exciting. There are a couple of specific knitters who I follow who are so good about making a make 9, or making a list of knitting that they want, knitting patterns that they want to make in a year, and just kind of checking them off and making them. And I feel like this vicarious sense of satisfaction whenever I see them accomplish what they set out to accomplish. And when I see those made pieces after, it's kind of this conception, okay, I hope I make that this year, and then to see it kind of birthed forth and made in finished as a finished object is just so cool and wonderful. And so I love watching others do that, but this year I'm not going to do that, except for my 4 garments and the hope to complete my knitwear designs that I already, have started. I have no other real requirements. I've got to work with what I have. I've got to use those things, and I've got to, be creative with the beautiful yarn that I already have, sitting here. I look over here because I have kind of an ottoman in my living room, which is where I'm sitting here now. And inside the ottoman is where the majority of my yarn lives. So my little stash is just inside this ottoman, and then I have a little, chest, or a little kind of Tupperware container, giant tub, also in our little storage room, but mostly it's here. And so I look over at it because I know it's waiting in there for me. And I know I have yarn for another sweater, which I'd love to knit this year. I secretly think and hope that's another project I will almost definitely make, barring any kind of external factors that limit me. I definitely want to knit mittens. And one more hope I have for this year as far as projects, which this is not a requirement, but it is a dream. I would love to knit mittens for both of my daughters. I need to knit them mittens, really just practically. The mittens we have are just not good. We don't have good mittens, so I definitely need to knit them both a pair of mittens, because that's just needed. That's definitely a needed thing. And less imagination, less excitement and beauty, more practical, pragmatic. We need mittens, and I like to make those things. And so a pair of woolly mittens for each of them, and of course they will both be very inspired, beautiful mittens. So have no fear, they're not going to be completely dull, the process and project. Not that, I don't really think anything has to be dull, but it's not completely pragmatic. When it comes to my knitting, there has to be has to be a little element of magic, I feel. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me today for this conversation. I would love to hear about your dreams for the new year when it comes to your knitting practice. And if you have a Make 9, for example, or if you are someone who's just not interested in any kind of planning for when it comes to things like this, if you just want to kind of follow your heart and just make what you want to make, I'd love to hear that. I'd love to hear if you have any goals or any kind of concept for the year at all when it comes to your knitting. I think that's would be really interesting. So yeah, please share with me your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. You can find me on merryweatherliving.com, Merryweather Living on Instagram, where I'm sporadically post. I hope in this year I'll post more, who knows. Yeah, of course, please subscribe, like this video if you enjoyed it, because it means just so much to me and it's just really wonderful and helpful. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again next time for more knitting and handmaking conversation. Take care. Bye.